Welcome, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order. It is 7:05. We waited a couple extra minutes. We have some extra folks that showed up. We want to make sure everybody gets in. We moved the line inside so they could hear us to start the meeting. We don't want to exclude anybody, so everybody can hear everything that's going on. So we're going to start off with our roll call vote. Our roll call, please. Kimberly, if you take care of that for us.
Adam Henkin.
Here.
Tammy Hines. Here. Andrea Corey.
Here.
Greg Meyer.
Here.
Scott Middlecamp.
Here.
Lisa Schumacher.
Here.
Tyson Search.
Here.
All right, on to item 2 is our welcome and recognition of our visitors. I think this is the biggest crowd I've ever seen here, so thank you all for taking the time to come out and participating in the process. We welcome you every time, and board meetings are always open to the public. Item number 3, we're going into public comments, and I believe a lot of people have signed up to speak. What we're going to do is everybody is limited to 3 minutes. We want to be able to hear everyone. In the past, we have limited people and cut certain people off at the 3-minute time, so we just have to be fair to everybody. So you all will have 3 minutes to speak. Whatever you want to tell us is absolutely fine. And we're going to, I think Kimberly has a color-coded chart.
She's getting a list.
Okay, I'm getting a list. All right. So basically, Kimberly's going to keep our time for us so we can all listen and pay attention to what you're telling us. And she's going to give you a warning. I think we have a yellow card at a minute. So you have a green card to start, and then she'll flash a yellow card at a minute, and then she'll raise her hand when your time is finished.
Red card at half a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry, red card at half a minute. So kind of everybody sees that. So. Again, we do welcome your comments. We just ask to be respectful, and there's multiple opinions on every subject, and all we ask is a little bit of respect. So with that, we will call down our first person that signed up.
Dana McLean.
I'm sorry?
Dana McLean.
Dana here?
Here I am.
Okay. And if you would, before you start, just state your name for us.
Dana McLean.
Thank you.
So I have 2 students that are middle schoolers, and my oldest, my daughter, has been vaccinated. My youngest, my son, is not eligible to be vaccinated yet. Whenever he was born, he was immediately taken away, and he was given observation for well over an hour to listen to his breathing. This was a very scary experience. Then, before he was a year old, he had colds that immediately became pneumonia, and he had to get steroid injections 4 times before he was even a year old. Then he was put on a maintenance medication for 14 months to prevent him from getting asthma or being diagnosed as asthmatic. To this day, he does not even remember this, he does not know this, he is not asthmatic. However, a virus that attacks the respiratory system could be detrimental to his health. Now, people will be very emotional about the subject of whether to mask, having it required or not. And I'm requesting that the school board not make an emotional decision. Before any decision about optional masking is made, please consider legitimate scientific research. Tonight, you may be presented with the results of a Facebook poll. This poll has the validity of me walking into my son's homeroom class and asking the students if they agree or disagree that their homeroom teacher, Mr. Tullis, is the best homeroom teacher. How many are going to disagree? Might the results be skewed? This poll is going to be skewed. On the same Facebook page, I was informed that Red Bud made masks optional in order to be an example to other school districts, and that because people stomped their feet rather than presented real medical data, the decision was made to make masks optional. Columbia is better than that. We don't need to follow in Red Bud's footsteps. I don't want to risk funding as well as lives over making masks optional. I support parental choice up to the point where it infringes upon other children's health and welfare, especially in a public school environment. I support our superintendent's decision to keep masks required. I support the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendation that all students wear masks in school. School should be a safe place for all students. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
Greg Schmidt.
Hello, y'all. I'm going to try really hard to keep this sincere, and 3 minutes is tough.
If you would tell us your name first, though, please.
Sure. My name is Greg Schmidt, and I grew up here. I lived almost my whole life here. I graduated high school in 1993 here, and my wife, Nikki, and I have decided to raise our family here. A big part of that is because of this school district. We love raising our family here. And I want to take this opportunity to recognize the tough spot you all are in. This is not an easy situation to be in, and I doubt any of you, when you decided to run for this position, thought you would be dealing with a life or death situation, but you are. And so we need you to know we're with you. That's the biggest point of my story here. I want to get into a little math, though, and talk about the fact that I went out and I did all the research I could. I'm kind of a nerd as far as data, if anybody knows me. And I read everything. I read CDC and the WHO and CNN and MSNBC and Fox. And I clicked on those clickbait articles that said, Delta is putting kids in the hospital. And every one of them, when you go to read it, by the time you get to the bottom of the article, if you really read it, the experts are pulling back on that headline, and they're saying kids do exceptionally well with this virus. The kids that are in the hospital right now are the same number of kids that were in the hospital when there was a spike last time. And the best math that I could find, and it's really hard math for them to calculate, is a 0.001 death rate of kids under 18 years old. Now you flip that coin over and you look at some of the math that we can look at that is real over what is almost 2 years now. And it was a lot easier to come up with some of these stats, and I'm going to share a personal story with you after I go through a little bit of stats on this. But some of the numbers that jump out at you is a 50% increase in antidepressants in kids under the year of 18 years of age, and a 20% increase in suicide attempts in girls under 18 years of age. My personal story is my wife and I sent our son off to college after graduating here in 2020 to Eastern Illinois University, and we were super proud, under these guidelines. And he went into a depressive state, so bad that we had to have the campus police basically go kick his door down to make sure that he was alive and okay. And he's home with us now, and we're doing a reset. But so many parents that I know are experiencing that same thing right now. It's very real. So every night I want you to know I pray about this. And in my prayer, I'm thanking God for my family's health. It's the number one thing. And then I'm asking God to help us navigate through this epidemic that we're dealing with. And what I hear back from God is, I have you, I got you. Your kids are going to be safe. But you people, we're the ones doing this to them right now. We're the ones putting them in this position, wrecking their mental health, and it's real. And in closing, the final thing I want to say to you is, you all have to place a bet. It's a tough bet. Like I said, I don't envy you. But you have to place a bet on physical health at 0.001% or mental health, where if you don't change direction, you will have suicides this year that we're going to be hit with locally. So we're with you. Go fight for us. I'll go with you. Thank you, guys.
Mary Brooks.
Hello, my name is Mary Brooks, and I just have a quick question for you guys. I am going to be a junior in high school this year, and my question for tonight is, what is the school's remote learning policy with the kids who are quarantined, and how will the children get the help they need when they are home without instruction from their teachers? Now, since we have started school, a couple of teachers have reached out to their students offering remote learning if quarantined. However, I believe it should be offered to every student in this situation. Therefore, I am nervous of being quarantined due to the exposure and not getting the help I need. Thank you.
Chris Poulter?
Get my notes, folks. A little bit taller than everybody else up here, so. Most of you guys probably heard me last spring about the BLM situation we had. If you were on the board, if you were not, I graduated high school here in 1989, served 12 years in the military, moved my family back here from O'Fallon, where I stood on the school board for 3.5 years. So like Eric, Greg, and those guys that are going to talk tonight, we understand you're in a tough position. But the realization is that other school districts are making decisions that you guys are not. And we're curious to know if the school board was given the opportunity to vote on masks or not, or if this was directed unilaterally by superintendent. So my question to you guys is simple. Have you as a school board looked into what happens if you do not follow Pritzker's mandate on masking and quarantines? What would happen if we didn't follow that mandate? And I want to remind you as a board, he has no right legally to set a mandate. You follow laws. The laws by the ISB are already spelled out. You as a board have the ability to buck the system, if you will. Mandates have not been voted on in the Senate or House in Illinois. They've been voted down by Democrat and Republican senators and congressmen. So again, you guys need to be the ones running this show. Our superintendent should not be making choices for the whole community. We voted you guys in. You have the power. And that's, I think I stand for everybody here. Do we agree with that? You guys, you with me? I said in the spring, and I'll say it today, you have a chance to divide or you have a chance to heal. It is your guys' chance tonight to make that choice. Please do so. No mask, no quarantine for our kids. If they get sick, that's on us, and we'll put them in school. Take them out of school. But if my kid's sitting 6 feet to 3 feet from some other kid, it's not her fault. She's just, the kid's sick. How many of us went to school with a kid next to us hacking, snotting on his leg or whatever? Back in the day. And all of a sudden this virus, everybody acts like it's friggin' zombie apocalypse. It's not happening, guys. The data's out there. You guys know how to find it. Just do the right thing. Don't quarantine our kids unless they are sick, and let the board vote if we are going to mask. And I'd like to see a vote if that's not going to happen anytime soon tonight. Thank you very much.
Christy Daugherty?
Good evening. My name is Christy Daugherty, and I have 3 children in the district. I wanted to come to the school board tonight with some concerns as a parent. These concerns include masking, quarantine, and remote learning. I would like to understand why the change from optional masking in July to mandatory masking in August. A mandate is not law. Given that Illinois House Bill 2789 did not proceed in the legislature, local government has the autonomy to proceed with the will of the people. The State Board of Education does not have the authority to sanction schools on this issue. As we all know, COVID is real. However, according to New York Times, only 0.2% of kids between the ages of 5 to 14 have died from COVID in the United States, compared to 0.5% from drowning and 0.3% from the flu. Meanwhile, we are seeing an increase in mental health and suicide. Kids need to be seen and heard, and this cannot be done being masked or being quarantined. Another point I want to understand is why vaccinated children do not have to be quarantined and a non-vaccinated child does. According to CNBC, 74% of people infected in the Massachusetts COVID outbreak were fully vaccinated. In addition, on August 5th, the CDC Director, Rochelle Walensky, stated, "Our COVID vaccines are working exceptionally well. They continue to work well for the Delta with regard to the severe illness and death they prevent. But what they cannot do anymore is prevent transmission. So regardless of vaccination status, transmission can occur." Remote learning is another concern. If a child is quarantined, what does their learning look like? A packet, especially for the higher grades, is not going to work. Some school board members might be concerned about being liable in case of a suit regarding COVID. According to 105 ILCS 5 school code, individual school board members have indemnity from the districts. Another idea would be for parents to sign a waiver that stated the school would not be liable for any COVID cases. I know the school board has had a difficult 18 months of navigating through all this. We appreciate everything you do. If we continue to follow bills that are not law, what else will the school be allowing in later on? Our children are our future. We want the best for them, and as I know you do, otherwise you would not have decided to be on the school board in the first place. If we do not stand up for them now, what will we be risking in the future? Thank you.
They're out of time. Corey Daughtery?
Good evening. My name is Corey Daugherty, and I am a parent of 3 kids in Columbia. Question I'd like answered is, Mr. Grody was at the meeting with local schools and heard how other schools came to the decision regarding masks. Why are other schools able to not be mandated, but our school is? I'd like to know if the school board has a line as far as how far do things go. If more mandates follow, does the school board plan on accepting everything? Is there anything we don't accept? Mask and quarantining may seem minimal, but where does it stop? Unless schools start standing up, it's just the beginning. There's already CRT and sex criteria flowing down, being mandated on our children. Are we accepting these as well? I know my family and many others have a line in the sand, and if things don't change, we will definitely be looking to move. It's very sad to say that. I mean, our kids have been going here for quite a few years and have loved going to this school. So it's not something we want to do, but everybody has to have their line. So just want to let everyone know that, the families here are with the board and here to help. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Brian Hicks.
So first off, thank you guys. I think this is a testament to the community that we all came out, but...
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you state your name for us, please?
Ryan Hicks.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
So you guys took this position to serve our community, and we thank you. Because this is the first time I've ever been to a board meeting. I'm not active in the community other than raising my kids, and you guys are, so thank you. My biggest issue, as well as I know others, it's not about getting in an argument around mask. My preference would be that it's optional, and that if you've got children that are compromised, definitely, if that's in their best interest. But my concern is more around the quarantining. And that's the scary part. If a kid shows up to school and they have symptoms, send them back, send them home, quarantine them. If we know they're sick, quarantine them. To take a gamble on someone that might have been next to that person for 15 minutes, 3 feet apart, which is difficult to document and prove, to take that chance and take a perfectly healthy student out of school, out of sports, out of whatever activity it is that they're involved in, as a precaution, I think that's overreach. I don't believe in that. I think last year there was a lot of uncertainty, and I think a lot of extreme measures were taken. I think we know more now than we did last year, and so I think that needs to be taken into consideration. Your guessing is all you're doing by removing someone out of school. You're checking a box, hoping that you're covering yourself and try to protect more kids, and I get it. But the guess comes in, you don't know how kids are going to respond out of school. And on a personal note, I've got two students. One's a junior and one's a freshman this year. And I've got my youngest here. My other one had a previous commitment. And so I'm not going to call him out other than if you would have told me pre-pandemic who would have responded better outside of the school, my gamble would have been on my oldest. And it was just the opposite. My youngest did an excellent job. He stood up to the adversity and he responded very well. My oldest, he worked and worked and worked, but missing the structure that he was so used to was a detriment to him. And it did affect him psychologically and a number of other ways. I see the red card, so I'll respect the time, but if you want to go down the mask route, I would recommend no mask. I would recommend optional, but the quarantining, we have to stop that. Thank you.
Stacy Holtman.
I'm a little shorter than everyone else. Good evening to all the board members. We appreciate what you're doing.
I'm sorry, again, can you state your name, please?
Stacy Holtman.
Thank you.
I would like to speak on a personal note first. We have had COVID twice in 20 months. So for all of you who are wondering how long it takes before you get it again, it's about 20 months. 4 of the 5 of my family have had it twice. 1 just had it last year. So his immunity is still working, and he hasn't had it again. Also, we go to many specialists. We have many underlying circumstances in our family, and we do not want to be vaccinated for those reasons, because we do not know what else is coming down our pipeline, and we have enough health issues that we don't feel that that's necessary to take that risk. For the health department, unless you are a doctor or a specialist, I really would prefer for you to just stick to reading the CDC, I guess, because if you know what we know from having it and experiencing it, you have a 99% rate of being okay. So we were also told when my oldest, who was the first one to get it, and he has underlying circumstances, that his date of quarantine would end on August 8th. Then in the phone call, we were told August 12th. And then when I asked to verify the date, we were told August 8th again. So if they can't get the dates figured out, if it's 10 days or 14 days, I really don't know if I trust them saying anything else about that. Next, I would like to know when we are going to take herd immunity seriously. The idea of wearing masks to protect against COVID and neglecting the dangers that masks can cause doesn't make any sense either. Studies on masks have been done, and they found 11 dangerous pathogens were on the masks. They are as follows: pneumonia, tuberculosis, meningitis, sepsis, keratitis, granulomatous, anemic encephalitis, food poisoning, Borrelia burgdorferi, which causes Legionnaires' disease, staph that causes meningitis. In addition, studies have shown that the virus goes through the mask. We only want the best possible education for our children, and that is what the school is supposed to provide. The masks and quarantine, I feel, are just a distraction. My question for the board is, if quarantined, we understand the paper packet is being sent home with the children. With advanced knowledge of how to address a quarantine, why is a remote option no longer in play like last year? I have 2 students in the district, 1 in high school, 1 in middle school, and 1 that just graduated. Thank you for your time.
Jason Holtman.
Hello, Board. I'm Jason Halteman. Thanks for allowing me to speak, and definitely thank you for serving. Appreciate what you're doing, taking time out of your schedule, out of your family time to represent us, our community. Definitely appreciate that. I do have a couple of kids in the district, and so this definitely hits home, and that's why I'm here speaking. And I mean, as we've heard from everybody, and ditto whatever everyone's been saying already. So the one question I have is, if children are masked, and it's the most powerful protection according to the CDC website, why are they quarantined if exposed? So where in the school do you think they'll be exposed within 3 feet? We request the administration to provide a seating chart for each classroom showing the distance between desks and students, please. And so, and regarding masks, definitely for mask optional, but there's studies out there that we can all read and research and Google that'll show that unfortunately the virus goes through any of these masks. They've even looked at the N95 mask, and the virus is so small, unfortunately, it goes through those too. And so just definitely something to think about. But again, thank you all for your service, and we take this very seriously. So look forward to the outcome of this meeting.
Wayne Poulter.
Wayne Poulter. Got a question starting and a comment following it. On the evening of the freshman orientation, it was mentioned by Mr. Reeves that the students would follow the mandate set by Pritzker to wear masks until they end or until the municipality says otherwise. And according to the Mayor of Columbia, Bob Hill, we do not have a mask mandate in place for the city of Columbia. Is this going to affect the decision you make? And comment I'd like to make is I don't pretend to know any more than the next person. I do know that everyone has the same ability to educate themselves on both sides of it. And in my mind, there's 2 people in this gym that know my 3 children the best and know what's the best for them and will always do what's the best for them. So we ask that you allow us, I take full responsibility to raise my children, financially, physically, mentally. We ask, I put full responsibility on you to make the decisions that the community wants, that the community needs. Everyone has different needs, but you need to take into account all of them and find something that works. It's not one individual's job or responsibility to make the rules. That's why you're elected, because we look at you as just an extension of ourselves. So hopefully, whatever decision you make, as long as it is supported, we'll live with it one way or the other. But it's on you to make that decision. Whether we like it or not, that's where we're at. Thank you.
Kelly Analyt.
Hi, my name is Kelly Antalik. I have 2 kids in the district. My first question is, how are we all able to be here tonight without a mask on, but our kids are going to school with masks? I don't understand that. So the masks are annoying, in my opinion, and completely useless because the virus is small enough to get through the mask. However, that is not the real issue. The real issues are the quarantine and the lack of education offered to the students who are placed in school-issued quarantines. It is my understanding that when a student is placed into quarantine, they will not be given the option to remote learn. And I don't know why. The infrastructure is already in place for them to remote learn because it was there last year. You cannot give a child a packet and say, here you go. 10 days, you're on your own. The child will fail. They will fail miserably. And when they do, I ask, who is failing, the child or the district? How can you expect a student to learn chemistry, geometry, algebra on their own for 10 days with a packet and a few check-ins? The kids do not have education degrees. They should not be self-educating. The teachers who are hired in the district do have the degrees, and they need to be the ones teaching, not the students. My daughter is a junior in high school. Most people would argue that junior year is the most important year to prepare for college. And you're telling me that if she gets put into quarantine, she has to just figure it out? Your number one priority should be the kids and their education. Handing out a packet for 10 days sends a clear and strong message that you do not care about them or their education. Do you understand the impact that this has on their confidence and mental well-being? I come here tonight to urge you to reevaluate your quarantine plans for our students. There's absolutely no reason why they cannot remote in. They're already adhering to the mask mandates, and on top of this, you're putting healthy children into quarantine. It is also my understanding that the teachers are complaining about the remote option for quarantine students because it creates more work. Well, we're all adjusting to this time we're in. We all have had to take on more work in various areas of our lives. You know how hard it is for a young child to learn diction and how to read without being able to see a teacher's face because of a mask? So my point is, all the students have had to make sacrifices during the time. It's not just the teachers making sacrifices. So the argument to remove remote learning for quarantine kids just doesn't work for me. So I ask you, please do what's right and reinstate remote learning for the quarantine kids. Thank you.
Caitlin Bromberger.
Hi, my name's Caitlin Bromberger. Thank you so much for allowing us to speak here, and we really do appreciate your time that you put into serving our community and our children. Thomas Jefferson once said, "When a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government." In layman's terms, when justice becomes law, resistance becomes duty. Parents' choice matters. We know our children better than our government does. A government that is supposed to be for the people, by the people, and of the people. Under Illinois law, an epidemic is classified as a disaster which gives our governor a wide range of emergency powers for a limited time. According to Section 7 of the Emergency Management Agency Act, it allows him to exercise the emergency powers authorized for a period of up to 30 days. Governor Pritzker initially declared a statewide disaster on March 9th, 2020, and has continually declared statewide disasters every 30 days since. If the governor and the ISBE had the power to create mandates and revoke recognition status for Illinois schools, why has House Bill 2789 been introduced into Illinois legislation? HB 2789 would amend the Department of Public Health Powers and Duties Law of the Civil Administrative Code of Illinois. It would grant the governor the power he is forcefully and unlawfully executing currently. At what point do we stand up to the dictatorship of Governor Pritzker, who repeatedly circumvents legislation, law, and order? Free people are never ruled by fear. It's been said that children are resilient. These mandates and countermeasures outweigh the possible detrimental impacts, including the emotional, psychological, and physical health on our children. Dr. Fauci himself recently said, hopefully, this won't have any lasting negative impact on our kids. Hopefully. That doesn't sound very hopeful to me. The weight of the resiliency we are asking our children to bear is a load too heavy for most adults to carry. We are the parents. We are the advocates. We are the community. We don't need resilience. We need advocacy from you, the school board, elected by people of the Columbia community. Don't let them take away the local power lawfully granted to you. We need to do better for them. We need to stand up and do what we know is right. Unmask our children. Thank you.
Angelique Hicks.
Hey guys, my name is Angelique Hicks, and I do also want to say thank you for taking time to represent our community and the parents and the students, so thank you so much. Good evening, my name is Angelique Hicks, and I have 2 boys who attend Columbia High School. As parents, our children are precious to us, and I'm sure you can understand the severity of our emotion in this moment. I want to be clear with my intentions and what I'm trying to accomplish this evening. I'm trying to accomplish understanding, grace, and action. My intention is for things to change within the confines of the Columbia school halls. My wish is for students to feel free, have positive experiences that last a lifetime, and have many positive memories to look back on. My objective for the school board, the entire school board, is to hear me and the other parents and take action against these unfair mandates that are acting like law. I wish for the kids to see the faces of their peers and teachers and not be reprimanded every time they do. My purpose tonight is to help the board realize that the very danger you are trying to run from is only creating more dangers for our students, including a rise in mental health concerns, developmental delays, and a drop in educational fortitude. My intention is for the health and well-being for both student and teacher, as they both have enough burdens to carry in a normal world. My objective is to help the board see where they can be brave like us and stand up to authority that is not well-meaning for our children, to gather information from multiple credible sources to show the state educational system that their information is not the only information, and that a global pandemic needs the voices of top doctors everywhere helping the public and the world to save lives. My hope is the group of parents here tonight give you the strength to be the first to take a hard stand against coercion and tyranny that is dictating that we at the local level are demanded to follow or else. My intention is for the board to actually read the 47 studies that talk about the dangers of breathing in your own bacteria-filled CO2 for lengthened period of time. My intention is to find out where are you, the board, in getting your guidance and be transparent with that information. And my intention is to see if you've actually read the studies that you are basing your decisions on. My intention is to help the board understand that we, the public, live in a country where we vote for laws and fight for our rights. My goal is to reinstate that as a free nation, we voted for our representatives, including you, the board, and we, the people, want our voices heard. And finally, my last intention is to join forces with the school board and make this the best year yet for all students. I hope when this meeting ends this evening, you as an individual look within yourselves to find what your intentions are for our children, the future of our schools, and your position here on the board. I implore you to pray for guidance and listen. Your intentions can change the world and our school district. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak this evening.
Lacey Rapp.
All right, good evening, everyone. I have 4 children. 3 of them are school-aged.
I'm sorry, can you state your name for me, please?
Hi, my name is Lacey Rapp.
Thank you.
Yes, I have 4 children. 3 of them are school-aged. Only 1 attends public school. Her name is Isabella Watkins, and she's in the 7th grade. A lot of parents here have touched on a lot of things, and the first thing I wanted to ask is please don't embarrass yourself by insinuating that this well-educated broom of parents is getting all their facts on Facebook. My stepfather has been an attorney in the area for 43 years, so I'm going to touch slightly on the not legalities that are going on here. And also, I would like to let you know that my husband designs military and LEO apparel. He travels the country to make sure that they have the top-of-the-line material. He frequents testing labs in St. Louis. These studies all say these masks do not work, and he has seen it with his own eyes and has been at the testing facility. He cannot be here tonight because he is on a work trip. Before I get into the legality, I just wanted to let you guys know, I have a child who is diagnosed with PANDAS. What PANDAS is her body cannot fight off the strep bacteria. It attacks her brain. For years and years and years, she was diagnosed as ADHD, anxiety, ODD, everything off the wall. We tried different therapists, different sleep studies, trying to figure out what was going on with her. It is not very well known that children can have these bacterial infections that actually cause their brain to collapse. And this is what we're going to start seeing more of. And a lot of parents aren't going to have the resources to get the child the help that they need. Not many people in the community are well versed in it. Okay, as far as legality goes, first of all, the health department cannot mandate that you quarantine your child without a court order. So it has to be a voluntary. It has to be voluntary. So therefore, you as a school denying our child an education, that we don't co-parent with you, and I'm sorry, and I'm sure most of you are amazing parents. However, that is not voluntary if you are telling us that we have to and the health department hasn't. Second, communicable diseases are not covered through insurance liability. Please reach out to your broker and ask them to send you where it states that you will be liable if somebody sues you for their child getting COVID and either sick or dying. I promise you they will not have the jargon to send you because it does not exist. I've heard different school board members state they fear losing recognition from ISBE, as Dr. Ayala has threatened, referencing 105 ILC S5/1A-4. She does not have the authority, nor does the school board give her the authority, nor can they grant her the authority to withhold payments or unrecognized school districts or make final decisions under the contested case provisions of Illinois Administrative Procedure Act unless otherwise provided by law, and there is no other law pertaining to that. A lot of people have brought up Bill 2789. Proposed amendments did not pass. They are not law. ISBE is acting like it is already law and overreaching. Lastly, you as school board members cannot be held liable under 105 ILC S5/10-20. You cannot be sued, and it is laid out right there that you guys have immunity from being sued if something were to happen. Thank you, guys.
Jared Dinkelman.
My name is Jared Dinkelman, and I did not just come here to address the board or the committee. I came here to address everyone. I have two things I want to say. The first of which, or before I state my first, I want to say that fear is a very dangerous phenomenon in the mind. And fear is what stops cognitive and logical thinking dead in its tracks. So the first thing I want to talk about, when this started, I stopped and I waited for more answers. I watched all kinds of podcasts, Zoom calls from doctors around the world. And they have led me, they have said it themselves, and they have led me to believe, the first of which is probably going to shock everybody here, COVID-19 does not exist. It does not exist. We are all being lied to around the world as a world civilization. Number two, who here remembers about the Nuremberg Codes? The codes that were created for crimes against humanity. They were established so that civilian people have the right to choose for themselves. Now, being that the United States signed off on that, everyone from the president down to local leadership is subject to those laws and codes. I want to read you a snippet from Article 6, Section 3 of the Nuremberg Code. In no case should a collective agreement or the consent of a community leader or any other authority substitute for any individual's informed consent. Leaders should be aware that mandating masks on the citizens of a nation and preventing their access to food, health care, transport, or education if they don't comply is a war crime. Masks or any other medical intervention must remain voluntary. So with that said, what I want to reiterate here, or what I want to tell you, is that Nuremberg trials, the second Nuremberg trials, have started. Thousands of lawyers around the world and 10,000 doctors around the world started the second Nuremberg trials on July 4th, 2021.
Thanks, Jared.
Nicholas Helfrich.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Helfrich. I've grown up here from kindergarten all the way to high school, graduated in 1999, and love this community, and thank you so much for having us all here and hearing us. I have 16 years of flexible material and adhesive experience, and I work with 3M, I work with all the different adhesive manufacturers, and I do a lot of different work with venting as well as I've been working with N95 masks for a very long time. That mask has not been designed for what we are up against right now, and it is, when you understand masks, understand particles, you understand the blocking, anyone wearing a reusable cotton mask is just not following any type of science guidelines whatsoever. And also, unless you're going to completely regulate and micromanage every kid's mask as they walk into the door, make sure they have a clean mask, you are posing so many health risks to our children. It is the bacteria that gets collected, it's called blocking, and as air comes in and dust particles come in, bacteria comes in, there are parasites, and all these things get trapped into the filtration material. And it is more dangerous than you can possibly imagine what we are doing to our kids by making them wear masks. And no one in the political world seems to understand anything about filtration, does not understand how the weaves work, does not understand the idea that they are mandating a cotton homemade mask. And they've had a year and a half to come up with some type of government spec and government standard. I work with a lot of different labs. I look at lab reports. I have different types of adhesives tested to military specs. I know what a pass and fail is, and we have not come up with any type of standard. It is completely rogue on what kids are wearing and what they can buy off of Amazon. And unless we're going to really look at this and micromanage, come up with a spec that is going to allow the correct amount of oxygen in, collect the right amount of dust, and gets rotated in a proper schedule, and unless that's managed and regulated properly, you're going to be causing tremendous harm to our kids long term. And I have 16 years of experience telling you that this is the wrong type of filtration. Medical masks do not provide filtration, and unless we have kids spitting on each other, this is doing no good whatsoever.
All right, thank you very much.
Noreen Frederick.
Hello, I'm Noreen Frederick. I don't know if you guys can see me. I might need a chair to stand on. I'm a little short. Honestly, I was not prepared at all to speak tonight, but I want to thank you all for your time, and more importantly, I want to thank everybody, whatever side you're on, for speaking tonight, because it takes a lot of bravery to stand up here and to fight for what's right. I came from a father who was a politician. He came into his position at a time when his county was in moral corruption. And he did something that changed the face of that, and it wasn't easy. All I want to say is that sometimes what is right doesn't mean that it's easy. I am here to teach my kids to do the same thing. I can sit here and I can say, I'm only one person, I'm only a mom, my child's only a child, who are they, what kind of voice do they have? But a fire starts with a spark. That's all it takes, is one spark. If I can't stand up for my children for what's right, how can I try to teach them to do the same thing? We live in a world right now where they're constantly trying to tell our children what to think, how to believe, but only if it's on their terms, and only if it's what they agree with. I'm not going to sit here and look at my son who's over there right now and tell him not to fight and not to do what's right when I don't want to do the same thing. So all I ask of you guys, I know it's really, really hard, and I know you're in a position, I know it's hard to not be defensive toward what the government wants and toward what your guidelines are, but what I'm asking of you is to take some time to think about it, to pray on it, to do what you have to do, whatever that means, to really reflect on what's right. What is best? It doesn't have to be it's because the authorities tell us that it is. All of these people have given you all the facts. They've spoken to you from the heart. I'm not a doctor. I can't give you all the statistics and all the numbers, but what I can do is I can sit here and I can ask you to sometimes do what's right, not just because it's easy. You guys were elected this position. Nobody said it was going to be an easy position. I think you hoped that it would have been, that you wouldn't have had to deal with all this, but now you are in a position where you can say, where do I stand? Personally, where do I stand? Do I stand for what's right, even if it's hard? Or am I going to do just the easy thing because that's what I'm being told to do? And like everybody else has said, if it starts here, where does it end? What's the next thing? That we have to be vaccinated? That if I don't decide to vaccinate my child, they have to have a letter A all over them, or they can't get educated? So if we don't do something right now, where's it going to go from here? And the last thing that I want to say is the oath. You guys, when you came into this, you took an oath. And the oath says, I'm not going to read the whole thing, obviously I don't have time, but the one thing I want to say is that it says, I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets. And that's all that all of us are asking you to do this evening. Thank you for your time.
Grace Lukowski.
My name is Grace Laskowski, and I am a junior at this school, and I have been in the Columbia School District my entire life, and I was not going to speak tonight if I'm being completely honest, but I feel like I had something wash over me that I should voice my opinion because that's my right. And I think that masks should be completely optional. I firsthand have seen the hallways in the high school, and quite honestly, it's a joke. They arrow off the hallways, and that's doing nothing but more harm than good, because we are now crowded to go down one hallway from the top hallway, we have to go down one little staircase, crowding us together, which no one is social distancing, and quite honestly, it feels like the school picks and chooses when they want to social distance us. Just like in the morning, before the bell rings, they pack us all in the lunchroom, and we have to sit at the lunch tables. But why is it at lunchtime, we have to social distance? Personally, I think that the main reason why we are still having issues with masks and COVID is because of fear. We need to stop living in fear. Doesn't matter what you believe in or your religion or anything, fear is awful, and fear will take over your life and will make you do awful things that you don't want to do, things that you don't think is right, and we need to stop letting fear control us because we're obviously getting nowhere. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for letting me speak, since I'm only a junior, and I'm obviously not 100% educated on everything with all the facts and the numbers and the data and the statistics with everything, but I know I'm 16 years old and I have formed my own opinion based off of things that I have seen. And I think that my opinion matters, and it should. So, thank you.
Taylor Etheridge.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Etheridge, and I'm a junior at Columbia High School. These are my friends, and quite frankly, the best way that I can put what we want is we want a normal school year back. The last time us junior class had a normal full school year was 8th grade year. That was middle school. We walk in our freshman doors like, oh man, homecoming, prom not until junior and senior year, of course, and every event and every sport event like Friday Night Lights, and that is the only thing that we could ask for back. I've talked to many people about homecoming situations and how they want them, and no matter what, whether it's with school and whether or not it's going to happen, whether it's personally or with the school. We have been in trouble for masks, trying to get them together, which quite frankly really isn't fair. But I understand. And in no way that I want a teacher's opinion to change on me because my opinion is different than theirs. We walk into school, we're all friends and everything, but we still are right next to each other in the hallways, like Grace said, like shoulder to shoulder closer than we are right now. And it really doesn't make any sense, but that's okay because you guys are trying your best, and that's all I can ask for you guys. And so we asked for our homecomings back because that's what high school's about, and that's the memories that we want back. We don't want to put on a mask to cover our face because, like everyone else has said, it doesn't really do much no matter what. Like I use the same mask maybe once like the same week, and then I'll change it because I'll wash that one. But it's not a clean mask, so it's still getting me sick. Last year I had allergies, and I understand the cautions that we took last year, but it took away from the education of me and my younger sibling. My younger sibling didn't do as well in school as I did because, you know, I'm just better than him like that. But that does not matter. But I've asked many students on one of my social media platforms of what they wanted, so it doesn't just come from me and my friends because that's not fair. And it came to 75%, and 75 kids no, and 4 people, yes, I would like to wear a mask. So that's why we just asked for it to be optional. It's not we're telling you not to wear a mask or not have students wear a mask because that's not fair on their part either. We all hang out this summer, no mask. None of us got COVID, we're all good. But we just asked for a Friday Night Lights back. We just want our high school classes back, but I want to thank you guys for your time and thank you for everything you have done for us because it has been a lot. And thank you to the teachers that I've gone with this because the Google Classroom stuff is not easy because I'm struggling with it too. But we just ask that masks are optional just because it'll respect our opinions and everyone else's opinion. And if the student wants to wear a mask, that's completely fine too. But thank you.
Alyssa Iron.
I'm speaking off the cuff here, so bear with me. My name's Alyssa Einen. Now, when COVID first started, my dad showed me a video of a scientist who was trying to explain that masks did not work. He had a vape, inhaled, put the mask on, and then exhaled. Smoke everywhere. I think that just proves that masks don't work within itself. So, what I'm trying to say is we should make masks optional. If you are so scared of coronavirus, COVID, whatever you want to call it, you can wear a mask. But don't make everyone else here who doesn't like them and who doesn't believe in masks wear them. It's kind of ridiculous. Also, we've never been scared of the flu. We've never been scared of anything other than coronavirus. So are we just going to be scared of the flu and all these sicknesses for the rest of our lives? Are we going to wear masks for the rest of our lives? We have to get back to normal. I think we can all agree on that. Amen. Also, I'm a junior in high school now. The only normal part of my high school career has been the first half of freshman year. Everything was normal. Then COVID hit, okay? We had one homecoming. We've had nothing else. We've had prom. Who knows if prom's gonna happen? I know the seniors last year and the juniors last year didn't get a prom. Homecoming, was that even gonna happen this year? None of us know. I mean, we've had normal high school events be taken away from us, and it sucks. And I think that we all agree that it's time to get back to normal. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else? Anybody want 3 minutes of fame? Feel free to jump up there. So, all right. Well, thank you all for the comments.
Hello, my name's Debbie Ollendorf, and I have grandchildren that go to the Columbia School District. I'm up here because I love my grandchildren, and I'm going to ask the audience, if you're a parent or a grandparent, do you love your children? You, as school board, do you have children, grandchildren? Just nod. You love them, right? And when you took your oath that you would uphold the assets of the school, I believe, in my opinion, that the most important asset we have is the children we love. Now, we are America. We heard our freedoms tonight. And last I heard, and I've witnessed, is as living in the United States of America, we have a flag that represents our freedom. So we are a land of the free because of the brave. And before this meeting tonight, I kind of wondered why we didn't say the Pledge of Allegiance, but we do have freedom and we do speak the Pledge of Allegiance. I asked the crowd that as we say that, we will stand for our freedom, we will stand for our children, and we'll stand for the people we love. As these are all wonderful virtues, but love is not up there. But that is the main reason I believe we are all here tonight. So could we all stand for our freedom right now and say together the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I know they've threatened maybe some monetary funding for us, but last I saw on my dollar bill, it still says, "In God we trust." I thank you for the school board. I thank you. This has been a wonderful school. That is why I'm here tonight. My grandchildren have enjoyed coming to this school, and I just want to give you support, and us all in unity, we can stand for our freedom together. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right. I appreciate all the comments and you guys taking the time to come out here tonight. I know there's a lot of emotions on both sides. I think we're a little overwhelmed on one side than the other, but that's fine too. We also received an email from a group of parents and asking us to address some questions. And normally we don't address questions. And the reason is this is not a debate. We would be here all night and none of us get paid, so we wouldn't get overtime or anything. So we want to go home eventually. But also we're a board, so none of us have any authority individually. So I have very strong opinions myself, as do many of the board members. But until we actually reach a consensus, we don't have any board action, so I can't speak for the board. Board policy 8010 says the board president is the official spokesperson for the school board. The superintendent is the official spokesperson for the district. So we have both of us up here. I'm going to make some comments tonight, but the comments that I'm going to make are not as school board president. I'm not speaking for the board. I'm speaking from my personal opinions and views. So please understand that, again, I don't have the permission. I've spoke with a lot of the board members individually. We have not come to a consensus. As far as what I'm going to say. So a lot of these is my opinions. I spent, like you guys, I spent a tremendous amount of time on this, and to some of the comments, I have read the reports en masse. So I guess we want to start, let's go ahead and start with the questions.
You want me to read them?
Yeah, why don't you read them, because I can't see my phone very well. I was trying to pull it up I was trying to pay attention to you guys and see my questions at the same time, prepare, so apologize for wasting your time a little bit here. So
Is that good? Can you hear me? Okay. The first question, have you as a school board looked into what happens if you do not follow Pritzker's mandates on masking and quarantines? What would happen? Do you want to take that one?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me better? And again, I'll start right off the bat. I'm not a big mask wearer. This thing has been wadded up in my pocket forever, but I'm wearing it tonight because we're asking the kids to wear masks so far. That's the official position of the school board, and so I'm trying to set an example. So that's why I'm wearing this. It is hard to hear, so I'm socially distanced, so I think we're all good with this so far. So
the question was, have you as a school board looked into what happens if you do not follow Pritzker's mandates and unmasking and quarantines? What would happen?
Exactly. So a lot of people pointed out, so basically what would happen if the school board goes against the governor's mandate, which I personally don't think he has the power to do it either, but it's what fight are we willing to fight? How much money of your money are we willing to spend? I hate spending other people's money. I despise wasting people's money, especially that's not mine. You've put us up here to, and somebody made the comment that, we took an oath to protect your assets, and that's one of my views is what we're doing. But so basically the governor and the state of Illinois have threatened to obviously take away our accreditation, which honestly we'd have 60 days they would probably, just like Red Bud went through, they would send us a letter saying you have 60 days to correct, we can fight it, we can do all that kind of stuff. It is going to take some time for that to really happen, so we would have time to fight if we went that route. But one of the things that no one's really thinking about is sports. So the state can take our sports away instantly, and that's something that we would be really hard pressed to get back and would cost a lot of your money to do it. I always say don't fight a fight somebody else is willing to fight. And we have 2 school districts currently that have already filed suit against the state. Let them spend their money. Let's ride on their coattails and see what happens. Again, my opinion, guys, this is just, I'm not speaking for the board. The third thing is again, there's so much fear and they're, I've heard, well, you're going to get sued personally, and honestly, I'm not afraid of a fight. And if I have something that I truly believe in, I'm willing to stand up for, I'm more than happy to do it. And I don't back down easy. But then again, I have to make a business decision based on what's best for the school board. And emotions are high, and I understand, and I agree with most of you, but at the same time, again, we have to look out what's best for the school. Let me see what else here.
We need to watch out what's best for our children, sir.
I agree, and which brings me to I save the best for last. Again, sorry, this isn't a debate, guys. Okay, we're not going to back and forth. I am. You know what? Sir, come on, please. Just be respectful. We've sat and watched everybody and listened and gave you guys time, and now it's our turn. We've asked us to answer questions, and I'm here to answer them. And again, I'm kind of bucking the system because this isn't typical for us to do. And again, that's why, because we have to act as a board. We can't act individually. So I'm trying to address some questions, and we're trying to go that extra mile and help you guys out. But the number one thing in my mind is why I'm leaning towards enhancing the mask is the quarantine. So basically, we've added 2 teachers, one for kindergarten, one for first grade. So we're going to have a little bit smaller class size. And so I think we can, I'm pretty sure, in fact, I know we can attain the 3 feet separation. So with a mask and 3 feet separation, we don't have to quarantine. So the quarantine would virtually be gone. So all the ideas about sending a packet home and sending, am I getting ahead of myself? Okay, sorry.
Question 2.
All right, let's get to question 2.
If children are masked and it is the most powerful protection against getting COVID according to the CDC website, why are they quarantined if exposed? Where in the school setting do you think they will be exposed within 3 feet? We request the administration to provide a seating chart for each classroom showing the distance between the desks and the students, please. Do you want me to answer?
Yes.
Okay. We are, with the masks, it is down to 3 feet. In most cases, no one's going to get quarantined with this. Now, we do have buses. I do want to point out that our buses are extremely full this year compared to last year, and quarantines will occur on the buses. And so if you can go back to transporting your own children, that would reduce their chance of being quarantined from a bus connection. I'm just saying that. In the buildings, there's going to be some classrooms that there is going to be maybe 1 or 2 children quarantined. Last year, it was a 6-foot radius. Who came up with 3 foot or 6 foot? I don't know. Who came up with the 15 minutes? I get it. It's numbers there. But they do need to be, the rules are that they have to be excluded from school if they're within a close contact. And that's going to be minimized a lot this year. Mr. Wagner, do you want to talk about the, if the masks are so important, why are they quarantined?
IDPH and going on CDC recommendations. This year it is down to 3 feet if both students are masked, and it only applies to indoors. There's no quarantining on anybody that is outdoors. The quarantining is under the Communicable Disease Code. Local health departments, we have no say in that. That is law. That is under the Communicable Disease Code. The school board cannot override the quarantine. The only people that have the authority to quarantine or isolate an individual is the health department. And the crowd is correct. The speaker was correct. It would take, if we cannot get voluntary compliance, it does take a court order to quarantine or isolate an individual. Isolation is when you're positive, quarantine is when you're a close contact. And obviously this past year we've had overwhelming support for voluntary quarantine. We have not taken anybody to court. We have not had to force, police officers outside a house or anything like that. So, but in the school setting, 3 feet, the trick is, and Waterloo's already been in school, we are seeing a number of cases already with some close contacts. Buses and the lunch period are the difficult ones that the board, if you can address those, the seating in a classroom can usually meet that 3 foot separation, and then we would not have to quarantine anybody if you can meet that 3 feet. On the lunch period, what we've been pushing is keep the kids seated at the tables for under 15 minutes. And then we can take the lunch period out of that. If they're only at the table for 10 minutes and then they get more than 3 feet apart after that, you don't even have to go back and look at your videos or anything to see who is at the lunch, because they're under 15 minutes. So obviously, the goal is to keep as many kids in school as we can. Last year, we quarantined a whole lot of kids, 1% of those children that we quarantined came back positive only. And all I'm here is to give you guys the numbers. I'm not taking an opinion on the mask. I agree with a lot of what you're saying on the mask. Obviously, you can see when I'm standing here talking to you, the front of the mask is not going in and out. I can feel it on my face. All the air is coming in and around. But that doesn't change the fact that it's a mandate from the governor. Now, that's up to the school board whether or not somebody wants to challenge that in court. But as a mandate, what's happened so far, the letters have come down to Redbud. They were sent them already. They're on probation. They have 60 days to issue a corrective action plan, and then I don't know what the state's going to do after that, and I don't believe anybody really knows whether or not they're going to go ahead and proceed with penalty phase, basically, whether that be sports, looking at accreditation, funding, whatever. This mandate that he put out this time, my personal opinion, he's not going to back down from. Now, legally, if it's challenged, will he win? I have no idea. That's more above than what I know that much about the law. So, to keep the kids in school, masking is necessary. You can't meet the 6 feet that would be required if you're not masked. And like I said, I have no control or very little control. We can do some leeway and stuff like that as far as how close a close contact is, but 6 feet, 3 feet, it's under the Communicable Disease Code. We have to quarantine them. And then if we don't get voluntary quarantine, we have to turn it over to the state's attorney. Now, will that be prosecuted and will that be taken to court? I have no idea.
Mr. White?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm going to jump forward to, because there's another question on here that relates to you. If the CDC, according to their own website, recognizes positive antibodies as protection from COVID, why can't students who have antibodies return to school? In addition, why can't students who test negative for COVID return to school?
And that's a legitimate question. And there is an option for antibody testing. What the state has come down with is if you are a child's a high probability of being positive but was never tested. Say they were and we've already had this come up actually in Waterloo. I had it come up today. A whole family was positive. Mom, dad, and a child. One of the children tested negative initially when they were sick. The parents and the other children got really sick. Then the fourth child did get sick, but the parents were too sick to didn't want to take them out and get them tested. So a story like that, we as the health department, this is where I do have some leeway on the quarantine. We can say, yes, we will accept an antibody test on that person as proof that they're positive. And that is in the guidance from the school and from IDPH this year. Who pays for the test?
Who pays for that antibody test? Because I have a lot of bills of medical bills.
Right.
I just like to know who's going to pay for it.
Whoever wants to test would have to pay for it, I would imagine.
Thanks.
So there is an option for antibody test, but no, why is it not, and that goes higher even than the state. Why are antibodies not observed? That goes up to the federal level. They're not observing them in any situation other than for 90 days. Why? I have no idea. It's not something I can say we're going to observe.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm. John, I have a question for a board member.
Yeah.
So we have a workaround on the lunch. Is there a workaround that you can think of for the buses? Like windows down, that's kind of like being outside.
Because it falls under the mass transportation law, and that's why even if you do away with optional, even if the school board or whatever was to do optional masking in school, the buses would still be required. That is actually federal on mass transportation. That's why you have to wear a mask on an airplane, a bus, a train, anything like that. That is not up to local or even state control. That's actually federal requiring, and they're looking at buses as mass transportation.
I'm not worried about like wearing the mask, but the quarantine for it, because our kids are so close together.
Right, and there's really, if the bus ride is more than 15 minutes, the workaround would be for the kids to move seats every 10 minutes to keep them from the total of 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes next to a child in a 24-hour period. So if they're only sitting next to a child for 10 minutes and they're not around them for the rest of the time because it's a different grade or whatever, if they were to move to a different seat at a 10-minute, they would never hit that 15-minute threshold. It'd be difficult. It could be done, I guess. That's really pushing outside the box, but it would hold true. It would meet the regulations. And obviously, I'm looking at schools, or will be looking at schools as we get back, comparing the masking schools to the unmasking schools. Now, I may have to go outside the state to look at unmasking schools. Personal opinion, not health department, not public health, personal opinion, I don't think we're going to see much difference on the masking. We didn't see it. This is the same talk I gave to Waterloo Monday night. We didn't see much difference in the states on masking versus unmasking. If you look, California had some of the strictest masking rules in the nation. Florida had some of the weakest. They both have about the same amount.
You and I had this conversation, so I'm going to ask you a question, because we had this conversation in the beginning when it was mask optional. When it was strongly recommended by the CDC, we were of the mind, okay, then we'll just strongly recommend it, and that means masks are optional. When the governor then mandated it, we mandated it. When they make masks strongly recommended again, when will they do the quarantining and the distances as strongly recommended? Because that, to me, and I saw some of your faces with the moving on the bus 15 minutes, the frustration and the anti-logic in your eyes. As a superintendent, I deal with the state a lot, and so I'm kind of numb to it. But yeah, if you can think of a logical way to do something, sometimes the state goes the other way. It is what it is. It's a mandate. When are they going to give us excluding optional? And I say excluding because schools can exclude you from school. We can't quarantine you from school. Right. I have no idea. There's been no talk of reduction on any of that stuff from the state at this point. Who would we need to talk to? Like, would that just be the IDPH phone calls that we would need to make?
I don't think they've discussed it. I don't think you're going to find an answer. They tend not to look too far in advance on issues. It's going to be difficult to find out, to do a long-range plan. No, I'd like to see it done as soon as possible. I'd like it to be done as soon as we can, as soon as we can compare non-masking schools to masking schools. Now, we could do that from last year. We had schools that masked and didn't mask last year. Maybe not Monroe County, but in other states. And we could compare transmission rates in those two schools. The difference this year, and this is where I'm a little worried about the spread of the virus, is the Delta variant. It is true, it is more contagious. You do have the Delta variant has a higher viral load, meaning when you're sick, when you breathe out, more of the virus goes in the air because it's heavier in your system. It doesn't mean it's making you more sick or anything like that. It just means it's heavier in your system. And that's why it is more contagious. Now, is it more deadly? No, it's not. And there's even some studies that show that it's less. I know a lot of people like to talk about studies while we're on the mask. I did a whole lot of research last week before I knew I was going to the Waterloo board meeting on masking. The only legitimate study that I can find that is not a third world country was one out of Denmark, where they did what's called it's a double-blind study. It's a randomized study. they're the scientific, basically, from the medical field, they're the gold standard in science. It's basically where you have a number of people that are masked, a number of people that say that they religiously don't mask. So you have the two groups. Then they go out, and these were large groups, of people. These were hundreds of people. They go out, and then a certain amount of time, whatever the study length was for, then they bring them back and they see how many people of this group ended up catching COVID, how many of this group ended up catching COVID. What they found in that study was that 2% of each group ended up catching COVID. So virtually the same. Now, that's not to say more studies need to be done, but I still haven't figured out why I can't find any US studies. There are none. You can't find it. What the studies have been done in the US are called observational studies. Observational studies is, with this mask on, if I cough or breathe out, it stops large particles from going out. So, with that being said, if I was sick, you would assume that the mask would stop spreading of the virus. You would assume that's where they're coming up with their assumptions. But there have not been randomized studies. That's just an observational study, and they're very inaccurate. They're you can talk to anybody, and there's other observational studies. We had a group here that was masked and a group here that wasn't masked, and this group got sick. Well, that's an observational study. You don't know why that's the case. That's called an observational study. The randomized study, the gold standard, the only one I could find was the one out of Denmark. There are some out of China, but I wouldn't read too much into those. So, and China and India were the other randomized studies that I could find, but there's no good studies. I mean, everybody wearing the mask right now can feel when you breathe. You can feel it on your eyelashes. You can feel it coming out of here. I don't want to say masks do no good, because they do. If I was to cough or sneeze, this mask would prevent a large plume from going out. But if you're coughing and sneezing in a school situation, you're not supposed to be in school anyway. So, is it going to protect you if you're in a classroom for 6 hours sitting next to an individual that's positive? Is this mask going to protect you? My opinion is no, it's not. But there again, more studies need to be done. I don't know why we still don't know how long this virus lives on a surface. At first, if everybody thinks back to the very beginning of this, it was 2 weeks on a cruise ship. Remember that when the news came out? 2 weeks on a cruise ship. Then it was 2 hours on a hard surface. It was longer on stainless steel and less on something else. And now it hardly lives at all on a hard. More studies need to be done in the U.S. so that people like you can make legitimate decisions on it. Same talk I gave to Waterloo School Board. Unfortunately, school boards, your hands are really tied unless you sink a lot of money into it and are prepared to take a legal stand against not the mask mandate, but the authority of the governor. It's not whether or not he made the mask mandate or not. It's against whether he has authority to pass these things. He's not going to back down. You will probably lose your sports very quickly. That's the first one that's going to do. And then they're going to go after the funding, and then they're going to go after the accreditation. It's not going to be, here's a warning letter, and he's going to kind of let it slide. That's not the impression I'm getting this year. He's not going to let this slide. He is going to take it to the fullest extent. Now, that's up for your school board to decide how far they want to go with that. But this is not one that he's going to. Last year, there were certain things that he passed. Everybody knows, I fought the restaurants forever, trying to keep them open. That was one that he did the same thing. Did he have the authority to close the restaurants? Washies stayed open, they got a ticket and everything like that. He wasn't going to put the political capital into fighting that any more than sending state police down to try to intimidate him. This is not that case. he's not going to just say, threaten you. He is going to follow it to the fullest extent that he possibly can. I'm not saying he's going to win if you go the other way, because I don't know. That's above mine.
Yeah.
But this is not one he's going to back down from. At least that's the impression I'm getting.
This kind of feeds into the next, thank you, sir. This feeds into the, I'm jumping around in the email.
I had another question
'cause-
for John. I thought that question was for John too.
Oh, okay.
John, I'm sorry. Okay, you're not going to like me for this question, but, okay, so since 1% of the kids who were quarantined last year actually got COVID, that tells us we're quarantining all these kids for no reason, basically. Last year, speaking of washies, the state's attorney did not go after washies for being open. So what are the chances, have you had a conversation with the county on the kind of resources they would want to put into going after kids who, or families who choose not to allow the voluntary quarantine?
I have had a few conversations with the past state's attorney. I have not talked with the current one. And across the state, what I'm hearing is the voluntary quarantine on a close contact can be challenging to prosecute. A isolation, that's a positive case. That's easy to prosecute and get, I use prosecute, but it's not, you're not thrown in jail. It's to get a ruling that basically it's forcible isolation, meaning there's police officers stationed outside your house and everything like that. It can be difficult on a close contact. The reason being is the 3 foot, the 6 foot. Where did can you imagine, those of you who have some, have been around court, can you imagine trying to fight that? Where'd the 3 foot come from and saying, somebody thought that was a good distance? Where'd the 6 feet come from? How come I was quarantining 3, how come we're not doing 1? So that's why, from what I hear, it would be difficult. There are right now, I just heard today, from other health departments up north, and I guess some northern schools start sooner than we do down here. There are kids showing up at school breaking quarantine, and the schools don't know what to do about it. And the health departments are, at least the county that this came out of, the administrator of the health department said her state's attorney would not take a case for a quarantine.
Do you know what county that was?
No.
Is that quarantine because they have COVID or?
No, it's because they're a close contact. The ones that have COVID, all state's attorneys that I've heard of will go after that and make you isolated. If you're sick, obviously, we can't have you running around the school being sick. It's the close contacts that are going to be the issue, and it's already starting up. Like I said, I heard of an administrator today on a call, Clay County, maybe, one of those up north of Springfield. She was telling us a story about that the school called her that they had kids showing up that were supposed to be under quarantine from the health department.
You and I have talked about this, right? Because, I mean, masks or no masks is not, to me, the real evil. The real evil is sending home the healthy kids, because you and I have seen it last year. They weren't getting sick, so why not just leave them here? It's the only when can you and I start having the more flex? Like when I called you today and asked about the testing.
Right.
You know, I would love that if they would just take a home test and they prove negative, they can come back, but they've got to get an alternate doctor's
and that's on
note.
that.
And so if someone goes home with the symptoms, so let's say I get sick, I have COVID, I go home, I don't know if it's COVID or not, I'm sick, and I take I go to CVS and I take a rapid test, and it turns out negative. I'm still going to have to go to a doctor to get an alternate diagnosis in order to come back to school without being out those 7 days. And that, to me, is wrong. But those are the rules that if we don't follow, then they sanction us.
Right, that's under the ISB. That's that isolation tree, that graph that we all have where you saw it from last year, where if you're close, positive in this, positive in that, that's under that. Yeah, and you don't have any play with that. I mean, they will, so yeah, it's going to be a difficult year. The only
But what I'm
difference
hearing you
between
say
this
is that
year-
if we accept those tests, no one would prosecute us.
Except what test?
If someone comes to me and says that they've got a CVS test that says they're negative, could they come back to school?
Not under the, you would be in trouble with ISB if you let them back into school without a doctor's note. An alternative diagnosis is what it's called, is what it says in that decision tree. Because you would not be following their decision tree that they said that you have to abide by. So it's, you know, the only difference this year, and that's why I'm not saying, you know, last year we had 1%. The difference this year is the Delta variant. I'm not 100% sure that and this is, you got to remember, I'm on Zoom calls, all different kinds of calls, every day for hours at a time, and even I don't know if the Delta variant is really that much more contagious than the regular one, because I don't know who to believe anymore.
It's,
you know.
The point, I guess the point is, though, we can debate it all we want. The fact of the matter is the state has a mandate for excluding kids for close contact and for wearing masks, and we don't like it, and so the board has to decide if that's what if we're going to follow those rules or not.
It sounds like you've got if they're masks, you've got the quarantine stuff pretty much under control as much as possible. You know, you might tweak some things to do it, but as far as unmasking everybody, I wouldn't even say your decision is really whether or not you want to unmask everybody. It's your decision is more or less, do you want to get legal help to try to fight the state?
Yes.
You know, that's more the decision, because you know that's what your decision is going to mean. If you just elect to say mask optional right now, that's not where it's going to end.
Yeah.
You know, so
this gets in. Go ahead.
But if we if we say mask optional, now we're at a 6-week quarantine, and we're going to have a lot more kids.
Yes.
We're quarantining the healthy again.
Right.
That's right, yes, and that is the carrot, basically, that the state is trying to push to get everybody to mask, is if you do mask, you know, that was their initial, if you remember when this mask, when the mask recommendation came out from CDC, the state there were no schools back in, you know, so the state came out and said, we're going to follow CDC's recommendation. That was all fine until the state started getting word that a lot of schools were going on the word-for-word recommendation word, and that's when the governor came out and said mandate. So, you know, we can work with the school either way, you know. Obviously, there is going to be more quarantine if it's 6 feet. You know, but it is what it is. I don't know how fast it's moving through Waterloo already pretty quickly. We have we have over, I think when I left the office, we have 24 school-age kids that are positive. We have a whole lot more that are close contact. Now, Waterloo apparently cannot separate their kids quite as well as you guys can. I don't know if it's because of school size or building size or what it is, but we have certain students that come up. We had one today that had 16 close contacts. He came up positive. 16 other kids are going to be out of school for 10 days.
Can I jump in real quick, because I was on my phone, and I apologize for that. That's extremely rude. But one of the questions is could Mr. Grody talk about the other districts and what they're doing? And Mr. Tallman, who is the superintendent at Redbud, just texted all of us and said, we're no longer on the naughty list. They have voted to do masks. And I said, can I announce this? And he said yes.
Yeah, and that they received their letter from
and the thing is it's because, and I want to just also say that I love my high school kids that came here and talked. Thank you. And I think the best thing I heard I don't have to, mask is off, I can talk normal. The best thing I heard tonight was when they said they just want a normal year. They want their homecoming. They want their prom. If we try to fight this fight, they won't have athletics. And whoever graduates at the end of this year while we're fighting this fight won't have a certified diploma. And so when they go off to college, they're going to wait. Now, lawyers move slow. State bureaucrats and lawyers are like sludge. It's you know, I mean, when I'm sitting here and we're talking about the rules, I can see on your face just this, I can't believe you're dealing with this, like the movement on the buses and whatnot. It's a crazy world we work in. I hate it. I love it because of these kids that you get to see. But the bottom line is that for them to have the most normal year, what we need to do is put on our masks, go to school, and try and get the state to realize we don't need to quarantine the healthy kids. That's the first fight. The second fight being, let's not wear the masks, or do it optionally. I get that. It's, 4
months of it land, 6 months of PC for whatever. You don't keep coming up with viruses, man.
it's the next question. Yes, go. The next question?
Yeah, next question, please.
I'm being told to move on.
I'm sorry, we can't take questions at this point. It's just, we're making an exception, doing this kind of answering the questions that are preformed and everything. I know there's a lot that goes on. We'd be here all night. I'm sorry.
All right.
Next question.
What is the school's remote learning policy with kids who are quarantined? How will children get help they need when they are home without instruction from the teachers? I know that the plan frustrated a lot of people because it said the bare minimum, which is a packet being sent home. That's what the state said is the bare minimum that you have to do for these kids that are sick. There's a few things that I want to make sure we're clear on. One, we don't do the bare minimum. Last year we did remote learning, and we did it very, very well, but it didn't work for everyone. And the complexity of trying to come up with one plan that works for everyone is impossible. And so what we did was we just made a very clean statement, not a list of what could be done, because we didn't want it to be considered a menu, but there is going to be the turning on of videos and people watching it. There's going to be synchronous, there's going to be asynchronous. And I brought this up before, you know, if in a science class, if they're dissecting a pig this week while somebody's quarantined, they might just, they're not going to follow along and watch the class, but they could get a link that would be an online dissection process. If you're dealing with a lecture, you know, they might get the worksheets through Classroom and they listen to the lecture and they do the worksheets if that's what the class is doing. But even for like kindergarten students, we have kindergarten students that could go asynchronous, where we do videos. That didn't work for every kindergarten student. Some kindergarten students last year were quite successful with packets. And so what we wanted to do was to make sure that we meet every kid's needs, and we know that we can individualize it as long as we're not quarantining too many. Now, that said, the state superintendent today just started to bring back remote learning days. And this is going to get into a rabbit hole of nightmares. Just understand that when we take attendance, we have to code it a certain way. And the remote learning days coming back is now where they can learn at home. And I'm scared that it might be because they think we're going to have to go hybrid, or we're going to have to go to remote learning because of the Delta variant. I want you to understand our goal is to keep kids in all day, every day, as much as humanly possible, but the remote learning is going to be individualized. Do you want anything there to say, Mrs. Smith?
This is what I was going to talk about in my assistant superintendent report. But yes, in speaking with several of the teachers, they discussed a lot of the strengths that came from last year with the remote learning, and they also mentioned some of the more difficult things that they experienced. And so the teachers want to be able to include what is absolutely best for students. And so a lot of that will be turning on and doing the Google Classroom links and the videos like they've done in the past. But there are, like Mr. Brody was saying, there are occasions when it would be better for a foreign language teacher to be able to record their lesson and then post it so that there's no glitching. If you're trying to learn a new language, same with our kindergartners, if you're trying to learn to read or to speak correctly, it becomes a little more difficult if your internet is glitching in and out, or if there's some kind of static going on in trying to listen. So the teachers wanted that flexibility, but overwhelmingly it will be done synchronously, very similar to the way things were done last year, with just that opportunity to have some things go along. The teachers all in the Return to Learn plan, if you go towards the end of that paragraph, it talks about the methods of learning will be communicated by each teacher. And so the teachers will be sharing with the families if that is going to be, you know, what parts we will need to get on and join in on the Google Classroom, what will be videos, what will be expected to be there, and then also, though, how they can be reached to be helped. Because no teacher in this district is willing to send a student home for 10 days and just tell them to go learn on their own. That's not why they got into this profession, and there's not a single one of them that is willing to just let them do that. That was an overwhelming conversation that I've had with not only our Return to Learn committee, but also in being out in the buildings and talking to teachers. And they've also gone as far as to say it's no different than in the past, pre all of this, when a student was out because of the flu or chickenpox or whatever it might be. As a teacher, when a student returns from being gone, if they don't understand, they do everything they can to catch that student up. No different in this situation.
All right, thank you. Regarding the municipality says otherwise, we're mandated by the State Board of Education, and so it's the state board that we have to answer to. They're the ones that have the stick, so to speak, and so we're hoping for the one of these days soon for the local health department and the administration to work together on doing what's best for our kids, given our numbers, and look at the quarantining rules and the masking rules at that time. Packets, we talked about that. Oh, the last one. It's our understanding that Mr. Grody's making an executive decision regarding mask mandates and quarantines. Is this true? And if this isn't true, we would like a transparent vote from the entire board tonight to know where the board members stand. Please show us how you voted. Mr. Grody's making an executive recommendation. The fact of the matter is that every district is doing that, and the ones that aren't are going through the process of changing their mind at the next board meeting. As we just saw Redbud did, there's going to be more that are doing that because, again, those sanctions come and they ruin it for the kids, and we're here for those kids. That said, tonight they will be voting on the reopening plan, which is with masks being mandated per the governor's order. I can tell you that when it comes down to it's no longer a mandate and it is strongly recommended, we would go back to the strongly recommended language, which is not a mandate. For me, again, it's that quarantine. That's the one that I'm going to be working on more with, but the remote learning plan will be voted on tonight. So, do we have anything to add on that one?
Nope. Getting back to also what else would happen if we don't go with the mandate is our third round of COVID relief is up, and which equates to about $558,000. So if we don't approve the mask mandate, we're ineligible for those funds, which is putting more burden on the taxpayers as well. So again, we want to be good. We want to be good stewards of your money. It's not money that we've received or spent or anything else, but it definitely does hit the bottom line. You know, thing too, though, guys, what you got to understand is we represent the entire community, not just who's in this room. So we have people at home without kids, and you know, we would have to, if we went against this mandate, it's going to cost a lot of money. And are we willing to knock on their door and say, I need a check for X amount of dollars because we want to fight this mask mandate when 2 other school districts are doing the same thing? So.
Property taxes.
Well, we want to keep your property taxes down as much as we can. We all pay them too, and that's you're talking about two different things. So it's if we're going to keep property taxes down, or we're going to increase them and fight a mask mandate against the governor with unlimited funds. So again,
That was all the questions, sir.
okay. I think that does address all the questions we had. And again, I'd really like to do more of a town hall meeting, but this isn't the setting for it. And this, again, we're kind of bucking the rules a little bit. We want to communicate with you. We want to be transparent. I definitely want to show you where I'm coming from. And, there's two sides of every story. And as the physics teachers will tell you, for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. And this is no different. So no matter what we do, and yes, we have the authority, we could say there's going to be no mask mandate. And we're going to let them all be. And we understand, we see the kids together and outside of the school, and we know they're not wearing masks. We're not stupid. But again, it comes down to what is best for the district at this time. So again, everybody, my personal opinions, we're going to have a vote, so you guys will see exactly how we come down. But I wanted to share with you a little bit about my insight and what's on the other side of the equation. But I appreciate everybody's input. You guys definitely made an impression, I think, on all of us. Again, I can't speak for the board, but definitely on me. So, all right, we'll proceed with our business meeting. Item number 4 is our consent agenda. And for all you that are new to the school board meetings, this is just an efficient way to take care of the mundane items on our agenda.
There's only one change for the consent agenda.
Okay.
Mrs. Becker asked if they could have a lunchroom monitor as a vacancy. That would be one more position into the lunchroom, but that's to help us do the supervision and keep them more separated. So that would be the only addition to the lunchroom monitor. Administration recommends that we pass this as presented.
Perfect. Any questions from the board? Comments? With that, I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Thank you, Scott. Do I have a second? Thank you, Tyson. We have a motion and a second. Kimberly, can you roll call, please?
Yes.
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 All right, item approved unanimously. On to item 4 is our personnel items. That's only considering.
Nope.
All right.
We're on communication reports and presentations.
Oh, sorry. All right, perfect. Thank you.
And Profe Otwell is here with Mr. Ackerman.
Wonderful, welcome. All right, we'll start with our administrative reports. Let's start with our building report. Well, why are you up here?
I am the 7th and 8th grade Spanish teacher at Columbia Middle School. I also teach at Columbia High School, and I am the CEA Vice President.
So the CEA came to the administration, Mr. Grody, and asked if they could have a representative during this report. So we're kind of, we're treading new grounds here, so we're going to see how this goes. We have had an amazing 2 days of school. It has been the longest and the shortest 2 days I've ever had in my life, if that even makes sense. The atmosphere and the vibe in the building is amazing. There's a vibe there that I personally haven't felt for an entire year. It feels like a quote-unquote non-COVID normal year. Talking with students for the past 2 days, their biggest concerns that they've expressed to me is not being able to open their lockers with the locks, because we have 2 whole grade levels that didn't get locks. So that's been a nice change. Our baseball and softball team started, I think, last week. They're both having so far winning seasons, so that's amazing too. I would like to thank Kurt and his great crew for the summer. The building looks absolutely amazing. It's nice to see the middle school all white and not all that gray, black, musty stuff over there on it. Monday we had a parent open house, and I heard a parent come in and say, "Oh my God, these floors are so clean, I could eat off of them." I offered, she denied, but that was a great thing to hear. Our gym floor has been totally sanded. It actually looks like a brand new floor was laid. It's been totally sanded. They repainted. We got rid of our old kind of jaundiced, yellowy looking eagle, and we have a nice new bright white eagle, so that looks amazing. The past 2 days, we have, Ms. Hewells and I have kind of reworked our schedule. So our students went through all 8 of their hours, but we created a big block in the middle of the day to do like a kind of a reboot kickoff session. And over the course of the past 2 days, our students have been reintroduced to life at the middle school. There's been different quote-unquote sessions. We've worked on relearning all of the different programs they need to log in. We've talked about appropriate social media usage. We've talked about lots of different service, our 3 behavior expectations, all the different things that we kind of need to reboot and restart this school year. And I'm going to hand it off to Profe here.
Yeah, so we had those kickoff sessions, and I think it's been really good for the kids. I think they brought a lot to the table with what they were able to contribute to those sessions. And one of the things we did today was an author. We met an author today of this book, The Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus. It's really good, actually. I read it, and my daughter, who's a 5th grader this year, read it, and she was gracious enough to come on a Google Meet with us, and I think the kids really loved it. They had great questions. They really enjoyed it. She showed us her pet bird. That was really cool. The kids enjoyed that. But it was just a nice way to get to see everybody again. You know, despite all of the changes in protocol and mitigations and everything else, I've just been so proud of the way the students have reintroduced themselves to school life. They've jumped right in. They've had lots of, it's been high energy, positive energy. I've just loved having them in class. And one of our 5th grade teachers, and I think this is kind of across the board, said that our 5th graders are transitioning really well. And I would have to agree, as a parent of a new 5th grader at CMS, she loves it. And so I think the past 2 days and what's going on at CMS have just been really fantastic, and I'm looking forward to 174 more.
174 more?
Yeah, it'll be great.
Not that anybody's counting, though.
No.
It's a lot easier if you just do the weeks, though. Then it's like almost 39 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our assistant superintendent report.
So we've been working on several things. One of the things that I've been working with the para committee, our evaluation committee, there was 2 changes that came down from the state. One was on so teachers can receive 1 of 4 ratings in their evaluation cycle. It's excellent, proficient, needs improvement, or unsatisfactory. And so one of them is if you receive an unsatisfactory, there's now an appeals process. So our para committee met together. We came up with the process that would go through that teachers would go through. We are hoping that we never have to use it, but it was mandated that that be in our para plan. So we now have that in there. And the other thing was currently teachers are on a 2-year cycle when they're evaluated, so they get an evaluation every other year. This new ruling that came down is based on if you receive an excellent or a proficient evaluation and you're a tenured teacher, that instead of being evaluated every other year, you would go on a 3-year cycle, but you would still have an informal evaluation within those first 2 years. And so that was something we weren't mandated to start that until next year, but the committee agreed that it was something that those teachers work really hard to achieve those excellent and proficient evaluation levels. And so that was something that we felt was very easy for the district to do and get into that plan. So those 2 changes were made with the committee, and we've been sharing that new information with the teachers during the opening day meetings. Been meeting with the teachers. A lot of things that they were asking for was more professional development on how they can do things just a little bit better, or just have a little bit more support, and how to continue to grow and become better for all of the students in the district. And so kind of been presenting different options that can meet the needs of all of the staff on a broad spectrum, but also in a more specific way. And then the other thing I was going to talk to you about was the return to learn, the quarantining plan. So I don't know if there's any questions still about the quarantine learning plan, or if we kind of talked about that before. Okay, that's all I have.
Perfect, thank you. And the big guy.
All right. There were no FOIAs this month. Summer projects are pretty much done. We have one more project that's kind of a summer project. It got added on midsummer. I'm not sure if you're aware, but behind the visitor football field, visitor bleachers, there's a land bridge that connects the middle school and the high school, and it has, it's about this wide right now, and I would not walk on it. We're going to grub the bushes back and away, and we've got a metal bridge that's coming in, and they're going to have concrete bunkers, and so it's going to be a lot more space there, and a bigger bridge is going to be put into over that ravine. We're working with the architects on that. We did go through the ROE. We will get a builder's permit, all of those other things that you need for bridges of such significance. Our first day of school came back. We're hoping that that bridge is there for football season, but it doesn't look like it's going to be. There's an issue with supply chain lines here in America. The beginning of the school year went well. Our mode today is reboot, refocus, get the whole year started again, get back to basics, and really start looking at the curriculum. And Ms. Smith is leading that charge, and I'm excited to see where that's going. We have taken a pause in our strategic planning process. You'll be getting an email from me tomorrow regarding the values that we have, and then writing those statements that some of you had forgotten to send me. I got one, so I appreciate the one. I won't point anybody out. Gold star is in my office, and I'll give it to you later. But that's it.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 7, our items for action. The first one is A, approve the reopening plan for the 21-22 school year.
Yeah, and we discussed almost every aspect of that tonight. Administration recommends the board approve the reopening plan for the 21-22 school year as presented.
All right, open up to discussion.
I think the most important thing is, last year it was we couldn't have kids in school all day, every day, and that was so important, and I think that's part of the mental health issue. Having kids in school every day, all day is so important, and if we go ahead and continue following the order, then that allows us to only quarantine at 3 foot, which means we're going to be quarantining very, very few kids. And after listening to John Wagner, then those parents have a choice to make if they're going to sign off on us excluding them. And if they don't sign off on it, then they take the chance of what could happen, right? I understood that correctly? So I'd like to continue with the mask just to be able to keep all the kids in school as much as we can. I think that's so important.
And I agree with Tammy. I think getting the kids in school and keeping the kids in school, and as you said, I mean, we were in a little bit and backed off and then a little bit more and all that last year. And I think keeping the kids in school it should be our #1 priority.
And I believe personally that we should probably look at options for the homecoming proms and stuff like that to be possibly held outdoors so that the kids don't have to wear masks and they don't have to social distance and we can get them back to a more normal year. I would hate for a senior this year to graduate and not get any accreditation if we chose to go against this mandate that was set by the governor. I mean, I'm a mask optional person until the mandate came down, but with reading everything that goes along with the mandate, I'm not willing to put all these kids, our staff, and that stuff at a jeopardy. I would much rather see the kids stay in school every day, all day, with the mask on, and try to return back to as much normalcy as possible. I do want the seniors to graduate with a diploma that means something.
Anyone else?
So I'll share my thoughts too. So I can tell you that me personally, not just as Greg did earlier, as a parent and a member of the community, I am not a masker. I work for the federal government. understand how compliance works. So from my school board position, you know, I'm going to do what it takes to keep the kids in. My daughter that's in the middle school, you know, it had a toll on her, the emotional piece of it. I saw how it affected her mentally, being out of school, not being with other kids, not getting to learn firsthand, everything being remote. That was just not the best option for her. So as a parent and a school board member, my first priority is keeping them in the classroom. If that means that she has to wear a mask, I'm going to give her a new one every day of the disposable masks that are, in my opinion, less restrictive. And that's my choice as a parent. That's what I'm going to do, is give her a new one every day so that she doesn't carry those, you know, pathogens or viruses or whatever gets on the mask during the day from day to day. But you know, it's really if following the rules means we wear a mask and they get 3 feet and we can do 3 feet with the classrooms, then that's where I stand.
Okay. Everyone else?
I'm going to speak up a little bit. So personally, speaking as an individual, I don't agree with the governor's mask mandate and the quarantine protocols being put in place by the Illinois Department of Public Health. I believe the best decisions are made locally and by individual parents. Blanket decisions across the state just don't make any sense. Until there is a court order invalidating the executive order, and there are 2 suits pending, one in Clinton County and one in McHenry County. I don't think we have any local control. We could vote against it tonight, but I don't think it amounts to anything. I don't even think we have the option. We're backed into a corner. We're being bullied, and to defy the executive order, it hurts the students. I was most moved by the kids that were brave enough to come and speak tonight. And, you know, so how do I justify to Taylor Etheridge that, and her parents, that her diploma that she has worked 12 years for is unaccredited? How does that affect how she applies to college, what she does? I don't have the answer. And to say that the Illinois State Board of Education is just bluffing, they're not bluffing. They're actually doubling down and digging their heels in. And do I think they have authority to do it? No, I don't, but they are doing it. And so who gets hurt? The kids get hurt again. And the kids have been hurt enough. You know, I've lived through it. I'm still living through it with my children. It's been a nightmare, and the kids are getting hurt. You know, not to pick on Taylor, she's probably gone, but Taylor's an athlete. Taylor, you know, so do we really want to, after all the time she practices and plays games, to take away her ability to participate in IHSA activities? No, that's not just athletics. It's Scholar Bowl, it's the band. Are we going to take that away from the kids again? I mean, I read the letter that the ISBE sent to Timothy Christian High School, who said they were not going to follow the mandate. And the thing that really stuck out to me was that, you know, seniors who graduate from a non-recognized school will receive a diploma that's not recognized by ISBE. This action is irreversible should the school later regain its recognition status. And these students will forever have a degree from a non-recognized school. I mean, it's unbelievable, but that is what they're doing. So, you know, I've told many people I would never vote for masks, because I believe the science. I believe Mr. Wagner tonight. But if the masks keep us in school, keep them playing, keep them doing what they have to do, then I think that is the bitter pill that we have to swallow. So, you know, that's my position.
I couldn't agree with you more, so.
I just have one more thing.
Yeah, please.
I don't normally talk, right? But what you said before is I totally agree. I'm not willing to spend district dollars to fight this. We have a couple other school districts that are leading the charge for that, and that's great. The other thing is, I think, you know, I know very passionate plea by parents tonight. I hope they realize and look back to, it was just last month when we voted to go mask optional, right? So I think from that, they understand where we stand. And I should say, for myself, or how I voted last time. But to Andrew's point, we're backed into a corner. They gave us no option, and by design. And ISBE is not the most responsive body in the past, but they have turned these things around for these schools that have voted against the mask mandate. They turned around it so quickly and coming down hard on them. And honestly, I wouldn't say they were totally unresponsive before, but it's hard to get things out of them before. This is something that they're very fervent about. To Mr. Wagner's point, I mean, they're not backing down. So I want to see kids play sports. I want to be able to follow our quarantine guidelines, follow those processes, and keep those kids in school.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? I mean, I talked way too much tonight, and you all kind of know how I feel. I mean, I echo everyone's sentiment that spoke tonight, and it just goes against my grain to require these masks. And, when the governor came down to it, I was one of the first ones going, oh, heck no, they're not going to happen in Columbia. We're going to fight this and everything else. And you know what, though, when you take the emotions out and you get down to the business side of it, we're backed into a corner. I mean, we can't waste your money, and the other people that don't have kids in school, we can't just throw these dollars, especially when someone else is willing to fight. And we have 2 school districts that are in the fight. Let them spend their money. I'm happy to run on their coattails. And it drives me crazy. This is a painful vote for me personally, but you got to go with the greater good. Again, my opinion. So, any other discussion? All right, who's going to be brave enough to make a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Scott. That was easy. All right, got a motion on the table. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tammy. All right, motion and a second. Kimberly, roll call, please.
Scott Williams?
Aye.
Lisa Schumacher?
Yes.
Tyson Surge? Adam Huffman?
Yes.
Tammy Hines?
Yes.
Andrea Corey?
Yes.
Greg Meyer?
Unfortunately, yes. All right, motion carries. So, and again, we do appreciate the input, and it's not going on deaf ears. I mean, you can tell by the comments everyone's made. If we thought we had a choice or any way out of it, I think we would definitely go for it. So, and I know a lot of people are going to be disappointed, and I do apologize for disappointing you. That's not why any of us ran for school board. So,
All right. Next one?
Next one. Sir.
Good. Don't leave yet, Mr. Wagner.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing before we come to mask.
Please.
Several people commented on kids with underlying health conditions. I don't want them to think that since we now you're going to have masks in the school, that it is safe for somebody with compromised immune system severely. They need to really talk to their doctors. These are not, masks are not making everybody that much more safer that you can have a compromised child in the classroom now. Because I've heard that, I heard that at Waterloo, I heard that here tonight too, that the parents want masks because their child has some underlying conditions. These are not going to protect them from it.
Okay, thank you. All right, and item of action B is our approval of a resolution to work with the Regional Office of Education for voluntary COVID testing. And this is actually something we probably should have brought up during the question and answer session.
It's a work in progress is really what it is. Originally, I was not a fan of the on-site testing of COVID for schools. And the reason was originally it cost us money. You needed at least 100 kids to volunteer to get tested. They'd be sent home if there was false positives. It just didn't seem to make sense to me. Since then, they started to change some of the rules. It is now no cost to us. The ROE is looking to get a group together, and so the 100 would not be there. And if we do get people that voluntarily test, they test every week. If someone then gets excluded for a close contact, we could test them it would be test on day 1. So like if we are here today, Mr. Meyer gets sick, I'm going to be quarantined for a close contact because of that. Today that we're together, 0. I'd come to school tomorrow on day 1 and I would take a test. It would come back negative, I could stay. Day 3, I could take the test and stay. Day 5, I could, and so I basically test my way through the exclusion so I don't get quarantined. The problem with this is, and I want to just be above board with the board, is if we do this, that's all well and good. I think it's a great option for for those that aren't vaccinated yet and can't be unquarantined or excluded. But it also then gives other people the option, if I don't want to get vaccinated and I get excluded, it would allow me to be able to stay in school, which again, my #1 goal is to keep everybody in school. I want to work with the RE and have your permission to do that. It might cost, because if it doesn't fall through, if it falls through with the ROE, we might have to have somebody drive up to Springfield every week to drop off the tests. There's some details that are still needing to be worked out. The other thing is, and Mr. Wagner, you can correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is once we go to mask optional, the testing for staying is no longer on the table, right? So the carrot that they're, or the little carrot that they're hanging out in front of us is only good when we're masks mandated. Once they're optional and we go to a 6-foot thing, I no longer can test to keep them in. And so when I found that out just the day before yesterday, I kind of went, that doesn't help me at all, because I was really excited about once we get to 6 foot, this testing would really help. I'm hoping that they change that rule. Have you heard anything like that?
Not yet, no. Like I said, there's going to be some real challenges. If what I suspect is going to happen is going to happen, where we have unmasked school and masked schools coming in at basically the same infection rate, there's going to be some real challenges then for the state to stick to the 3 and 6. Well, why, if the infection rate is roughly the same for masked and unmasked schools, how can you say that masking is doing anything? So how can you say that unmasked has to be 6 feet? So this is a constantly in motion. So I'm hoping things will change as we go along. There is some leeway in some of the wording as far as quarantine. Not necessarily with ISD, but with the state, that the local health department can have the final word on quarantine. But for me to go against a state guideline, I have to have hard evidence to justify it. Meaning, schools that are unmasked and schools that are masked have the same infection rate. That would be a justification for me to stay in a 3-foot isolation, even with mask options.
Does us being a part of this testing assist you in getting that information?
No.
Is there, in your mind, any reason we should or should not participate in the state's voluntary testing?
Not right now. And the benefit, I would say proceed with trying it. It's nothing to stop it. It's more to get it going. Try it. No, right now, no, because it hasn't been done long enough yet for me to see the problems. If we start seeing false positives pop up and we start quarantining kids that are close contacts to false positives, or the big issue is this whole family. You have a positive child, that all the siblings get pulled out too.
Yeah, I guess, so what I'm asking the board is to give me permission to work with the ROE to do what seems to be reasonable. Because if we do this, I want to get on as quickly as possible, because again, the state moves like sludge. And so getting onto that list, this testing won't happen for a little bit. So I guess the recommendation is to allow me.
Is there a downside?
The downside would be that there might be some kids with false positives.
Right.
But again, those are parents that would make that choice with that knowledge.
Yep. Okay.
So if they are,
If we start seeing false positives, you can stop the program.
You could stop the program.
And that's why I said right now, there's really no downside to proceed getting it set up. If we start seeing an issue at where you
I just want to be very clear, when we do this test to stay, it's only while we're all masked. And that's the part that frustrated me, because it seems to me that if you've got a system where you can test to stay, you should be able to do that with 6 feet or 3 feet or whatever. It's just, I mean, if you're testing negative and you can stay, why wouldn't you?
Well, we got to apply logic to things.
Yeah.
We're in Illinois.
And that's something, like I said, once we can go into, if you go into mask optional, we'll look at that and we can come up with guidelines. Like I said, it is ultimately local health department's authority to quarantine or isolate individuals. But for us to go against a state guideline on the quarantine, we have to have something good to back it up, which we quite possibly would at that time. I don't want to say one way or the other right now. We can address that once the masks become optional.
You know, you just said something about if we had something good to go off of, well, 1% is kind of a good number, right? I mean, 1% of all the kids in quarantine last year that were healthy, could you not use that because we're not quarantining?
The gray area there is the Delta variant this year. Is it going to spread more readily in a school setting? We don't know yet on that. So that's kind of why, you guys are, mask mandatory now. Who knows what's going to happen a month from now? And maybe Delta will start to wane. We'll start to go back downhill. We'll start seeing that masked and unmasked schools have the same infection rate. Things can change pretty rapidly. So I don't, you're mask mandatory now. That may not be that, it may be long, it may not be that long before you can look at making a change. We just don't know right now.
Okay.
So what's the logistics? If somebody does test positive in this, do they go get a formal professional test?
No, the test that they're using, it's the University of Illinois test. It's a mouth swab, or a saliva test. It's deemed to be accurate enough for that. Now, they can go get other tests if they'd like to, and then we have to look at each one. Obviously, the PCR is still the gold standard test. So each case has to be looked at. If there are conflicting tests, we have to look at each one to determine, was there an exposure, and one was negative, one was positive. You can test too soon. It's more likely to get false negatives than it is to get false positives, but there can be false positives.
Okay. And then again, logistic-wise, do we get the results instantly? Because we talking about running tests to Springfield. Is that
test to stay is the University of Illinois test is not instant, but along with that, you would be using what's called Bionex now. People have probably even seen them in Walgreens and stuff. They're what's being marketed as a home test. Those are the ones tests that are using for test to stay. So you basically have two testing things. You'd have the random testing that students maybe want to sign up for weekly testing. That's the U of I test, but then you would do the 1, 3, 5, and 7 would be Bionex now, which is a rapid test.
So how long would this study need to go on before a decision could be made? Because to date,
as far as schools and masking and everything?
well, before you would consider it enough data to actually make a decision based on, because right now we're 18 plus months into COVID and nothing seems to ever have a date of closure. If we do this for 60 days or...
we would need at least I need to see schools at least for a month before there'd be enough data, depending on how many schools I could look at. If within a month I have 30 schools that are unmasked and 30 schools that are masked and they all are coming back about the same, that may be enough. If I only have one school that's unmasked and one school that's masked, to compare that data to decide on close contact quarantines, that's a little bit questionable, and it depends on the number of cases. If you're talking a school that you're talking 2 cases in a masked school and 2 cases in an unmasked school, that's not enough cases really to determine a pattern there. So I'm just going to be looking at all the information I can, and as soon as I can to give guidance on that.
Do we have any baseline data from 2020?
On the masked versus unmasked?
Yeah.
School, yes. Yeah.
So how is that being used?
And it didn't show much difference in the schools. The problem that we had with the past years was the schools were not in full capacity. We had AB days, A, B, C, D days. We had social distancing that was greater back then. This is a whole new school year. Whole different variant, whole new school year. Classrooms are full. Different school year. We can't.
But but they're not different schools. They're not different environments.
It's different capacities. You have much tighter kids this year. You have a completely different variant than you had last year that has much higher viral load. So we don't know how that's going to spread. We don't know if the masks are going to show protection.
So has any virus in history gotten stronger as it progressed?
Stronger over time? Yeah. The ideal virus, people like to think about mutations. Oh, it's trying to mutate into something. It's not trying to mutate into anything. It's just random. There's millions of mutations. The ones that stick are the ones that are more contagious. The ones that are less contagious die out, basically. They just don't get spread to another person. So the predominant variant is more contagious. The ideal virus is one that's highly contagious, but not deadly. A deadly virus is not ideal because it dies out. Once it kills its host, it can't spread. You can have a highly contagious virus that doesn't kill the host. That's the best virus that it could hope to mutate to. And yeah, they can get stronger, they can get weaker. Typically they don't get weaker because the variant that's around will continue to be around. A weaker one will not. If one virus doesn't spread as easy, the one that spreads the easiest is the one that's going to be the dominant virus. So it can't go down, it can't go the other, it's hard for it to go the other way. Now it can be more contagious but less severe. Now that would be a good thing to happen. But it can't be, the more the contagious the virus is, the more predominant that virus is going to be in the setting. A less contagious virus is not going to overtake a more contagious virus.
Things that are so frustrating to parents and to me is, so now we're saying the Delta variant is stronger or more contagious, yet they're saying, oh, I'm going to have to quarantine at 3 feet. Makes no sense. So, of course, I love the 3 feet versus the 6 because it keeps our kids at school, but that's so frustrating.
When things do, and I've had this whole conversation, when things do not make logical sense, it's very hard for people to accept. Right. It's very hard for us to keep things straight because there's a lot of stuff out there just like that. More contagious, but we dropped down to 3 feet from 6 feet.
Right.
Last year.
The testing, that's why I'm bringing it to the board and asking for, because it does add another level of complexity, another whole set of rules we got to keep in track of, and it not being able to test to stay with 6 feet once we go mask optional, I find it less advantageous. But I still think that it wouldn't be bad to try it, and then we can drop out at any time. So my recommendation would still be to work with the ROE and see if we can get in on this.
Mr. Grody, can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
In the materials, it talks about mask breaks, and we haven't talked about that at all. It says will be included as needed for students throughout the day. The duration and timing of breaks is determined by the individual school leadership team. Can somebody elaborate on that?
Yeah, the first thing that I want to say is that last year mask breaks were more difficult because you had to keep them within the 6 feet. One of the things about this year is that once outside, you can take off your masks and then you don't have to quarantine for close contact. So I could literally have my class go underneath a tree outside, take off their masks and be outside. And so we're going to see more breaks for that because there'll be more chances to take kids outside. And so what we're going to need to do is come up with a plan and a schedule so that everybody gets those mask breaks. But I think that once winter comes, it'll be harder because it's colder. But until then, Yeah, have you talked to any of?
Well, the PE is going to be outside as much as possible, so we're keeping the able to have their masks off.
So PE will be outside as much, weather permitting, so they'll be able to take their masks off for PE. Recess, they'll be outside, and then the teachers will still utilize the outside space when the weather's nice.
Last year, you guys ate outside, didn't you? Or do you plan to reinstitute that or no?
We're not doing that now. However, we do have scheduled breaks, scheduled mask breaks kind of thing. We also have teachers who go out and actually teach outside because we said when it gets cold and we get stuck in there. February is a long month.
So do we have any outside seating?
Like an outside classroom type of thing?
Like for kids to sit anywhere other than on a curb stop or on the grass? Because the classes are 40 minutes, right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any that would hold an entire class. We have a couple benches in the back, there's a couple benches in the front. That would hold a full class of 27.
Is there any reason they couldn't sit on the ground?
Yeah.
Yeah, just have class outside.
We do also have random picnic benches that kind of move around the middle school.
So I'm just still kind of trying to figure out if we're serious about being outside, why there's no accommodations at all other than the grass, because, this is a long-term thing, hopefully for at least a few months till the weather's good, as long as the weather's good. And the more comfortable kids are, then they're going to pay attention. If they're not, so I'm just curious of what's being done or if there's anything, because I think we may be able to do more to make them
Mr. Hemken?
more comfortable learning environment.
Yeah, are you like thinking about an outside classroom where we have a big gazebo and picnic benches underneath it that the whole class can gather, or what are you envisioning?
Even just chairs. Chairs are not hard to do. Even just having chairs for them to sit, to where they can comfortably sit and be.
So like the folding chairs out by the door and the whole class can take it out, because there is concrete for them to sit on. Right. They could sit there. Okay.
Well, we looked into tents originally, but there was a problem with permitting or structure or something.
To put up a semi-permanent structure, you need architectural drawings and structural engineering. So we looked at the Troby tents, and it just became cost prohibitive. Even to rent them, we would have to get architectural specs and an architect to get through the ROE.
Because that's the ROE. That's not.
Yeah.
That's not.
For building permits, we needed. It's an ROE permit we have to get.
Stuff that's really for that piece.
Yeah.
Mr. Ackerman, last year CMS added an additional lunch. Did you decide to stay with that this year?
Yes. Pre-COVID, we were at 3 lunches. We are currently still at 4 lunches. It's great. Pre-COVID, we had multiple grades in a lunch. Now every grade has their own lunch, and our numbers work nicely that we can spread out more in general with the 4 lunches. And it makes lunch to be a lot easier.
So have the other schools gone to something like that, Mr. Brody?
Some too.
Like CMS adding an additional lunch to lessen?
The high school
I would say the high school has added an additional lunch period. Initially, they took it back, but with all of this going on, they went ahead and added that third lunch period back at the high school.
Not to be stickler.
Yeah, we're kind of getting off subject a little bit, so.
Yeah. So the recommendation is for the board to approve a resolution for me to work with the ROE on voluntary testing.
Again, I'm not sure I got my answer, or I understood the answer anyway. So why do we go into Springfield once a week?
You have to drop off the tests.
The results or the tests?
The results, the actual.
Well, you have what?
Samples?
Yeah, the samples need to be dropped off.
I think what he said, we have a rapid test and then you have that second test.
And right now, the ROE is looking at hiring someone to do that, because for every test that you drop off at the state, they give you $8. But you need to, and it's just, these are, again, these things that they're trying to do to encourage And it gets to the point where I'm thinking, for me, I'm looking at it as if I can keep kids in school with this testing process, then I'd like to try to do it.
Right.
But it does add a level of complexity and a level of frustration because you're dealing with another state program.
Yep.
Okay, so to keep it simple for my thing, so
I'm asking permission to.
I understand that.
Oh.
I understand that. What I'm stuck on the Springfield thing and the results. So are we sending this to Springfield to get the results, or are we giving Springfield the tally of the results once a week?
No, I think the actual tests go to Springfield.
So he was saying, I think, and
so that's what I understand.
Mr.
So if
Wagner?
there was a rapid test, so you know the results right here, and then there was some other test that.
The U of I test?
Mr. Wagner?
Test goes up.
Hey, John.
John?
Mr. Wagner.
Yeah, that testing going to Springfield? It's U of I.
Okay, the question is.
You have a rapid test here first, as you were saying.
You have a rapid test, it's kind of a package deal.
What is actually going to Springfield?
A swab.
The swab.
All right, so we do, on day one, we're going to do a rapid test, and we're going to get the results instantly, or?
For the
Okay.
test to stay, you're using what's called Bionex now.
Okay.
But to do the test to stay program, you need the shield testing, which is the weekly testing.
Oh, that's the week. Okay, that's what the difference is. So the voluntary, we're just taking a random sampling and send that to Springfield once a week, where the return to stay, we're doing tests in-house. All right, cool. All right.
U of I developed this test, and they want the schools to start to use it. It first started out that tier 1 and 2 schools were going to get it free, 3 and 4 were going to have to pay for it. Well, then nobody signed up for it, so then they made it free to everybody.
Yeah.
Well, then still nobody kind of signed up for it, so then they made this test to stay thing.
The AC goes up here.
But field test isn't good for test to stay because it's got to go to Springfield. So to test to stay, you must do the shield to get the Bionex.
Okay, gotcha. I was wondering how we were going to know. Yeah.
Exactly. Why was that?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's the whole deal. The shield testing, they originally were trying to charge schools like under $10 a test. I can imagine that was going to be they were requiring 100 tests a day. And then, no, they were signing up for it. So eventually now they're going to try to put it in some other places too. So it's not a bad program. I'd say go ahead. My recommendation would be to proceed finding out about it, setting it up and everything. And then if there's a problem, you just
We pull out.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. I know we beat this dead horse.
So will this be added to the monthly agenda? The results or the ongoing progress of the test, so we can gauge that as we go?
I could collect the data and share it with you.
And put it on your superintendent report?
Yeah.
Good idea. All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve Mr. Grody to work with the ROE to implement the testing.
I'll make it.
Like Adam? Got us. Adam made a motion, Lisa seconded. Can we do a roll call, please?
Adam Hudson,
Aye.
Jane Hines. Yes. Andrea Corey.
Yes.
Fred Meyer.
Yes.
Bob Wilkie.
Aye.
Lisa Schumacher.
Yes.
Tyson Surge.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. On to C, which is approval of purchase of a 2022 Bluebird 71 passenger bus from Central States Bus Sales and a 2020 Chevy minibus 18 passenger with 1 wheelchair lift from Southern Bus and Mobility.
We sent out our bid specs to all of the companies we normally send those out to when we do these bids. We try and get 2 buses a year in our transportation fund. This is the lowest responsive bidders for these 2 buses, and the recommendation is that we award it as presented.
Any discussion?
So you said we sent it to the ones we normally send it to. How many companies did we send the request to?
I believe 3.
I also saw it posted in the legal notices of their public times, I believe. So.
Yeah, but no one ever, there's no bus companies that have really ever,
so what
we don't get those in, so we get them from the 3 that we've always worked with before. And
what about Midwest Transit? Did they bid on it? Did they respond? Midwest Transit in
yeah,
Swansea?
I can look into that.
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. All right, any other discussion?
It is in the budget that we're putting on display, so.
Perfect. Then I entertain a motion to buy a couple buses.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Lisa. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thanks, Scott. Kimberly, roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll abstain.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. On to D, which is to approve the 2021 to 2022 budget display.
Yes, the budget is on display. You all have a copy at your table. As I always point out, if you go to page 2, I believe, line number 22 is a key line. Page 2, the budget summary page, will tell you your estimated beginning fund balance on on row 3. Then you'll get your total receipts of revenues, which is 15 million, and your expenditures of 15.7. And so if you look on that row 22, you'll see that in the education fund, we're projecting a $728,000 deficit. Last year, we projected a $700,000 deficit. We ended up $200,000 in the black. So that's a $900,000 difference there. The year before that, we projected a 0, and we were $700,000 in the black. So I was hoping that I'd have more time over the summer to really dig into the budget and try and find out why we have such variance. I did not get a chance to do that this summer. I trust that I'm going to be watching this very closely. We do have the fund balances to absorb that $700,000 deficit. But this is on display, and so if you look at it, if you have any questions, please call me. I'd be happy to sit down with you and to talk about it.
Any questions regarding the budget? All right, and we just approved the display of the budget, correct?
Yeah, we just.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve the 2021-2022 budget display.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Adam.
I'll second it.
And your second, thank you. Kimberly, roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
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 Motion carries. Letter E is to establish the date and time for our 2021-22 budget hearing.
And we've historically done that at 7 p.m. on the regularly scheduled meeting, which actually is on the 4th Thursday because the budget has to be on display for 30 days. And so I recommend that we do it at 7 p.m. on September 23rd, and the regular meeting would occur directly after.
I'll make the motion.
All right, thank you, Lisa. A motion on the floor. Do I have your second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tammy. Kimberly, roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Perfect. Motion carries. All right, letter F is the approval and accept of the second reading of the board policies, the press issue number 107.
These were on display from last board meeting. The recommendation is that we approve them as presented with the following notes. 130 is the mission statement review. We are, if we ever get around to the strategic planning process and that changes, we will change it in policy at that time, so this is fine to keep that. And then Mrs. Gocher actually reviewed it and saw on 120, I didn't have this in your notes, but we have Parando still listed as our special education co-op. And we've been out of Parando now for 7 years? We're going on our 7th year, and so we should probably take Parando off of our special ed co-ops. Adam and Scott are the two board members on this committee. Did you guys see anything that needed to be noted? Most of this was really just legalese, updates and whatnot.
I have nothing else.
You had nothing else?
Well, did we update the mission statement during our planning meeting? Remember with all the Post-it notes and I thought we updated.
That's the mission statement that's in here.
Okay, all right.
So that is the most updated one, yes.
Okay. So my understanding is since we have deviated from the standard plan, our changes are remain constant. Even when we approve this, we're not going back to their language, we're sticking with ours.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Any discussion, questions? Fun stuff. All right, with that, I make a motion to approve the Press Policy 107. Thank you, Tyson. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Getting late. Everybody's. I prefer to have motion and second. Kimberly, roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
All right, that concludes our action items. Item number 8 is our discussion items for individual board member comments. And I know we got a little off topic on the deal and we're talking about some outside things, so this is perfect opportunity if you guys want to resume those conversations. And all right, getting late, you can tell. Perfect. Board prerogative, you guys have definitely heard enough from me tonight, so I'll shut up. Executive session, since we did pass the mandate, we no longer have a need for executive sessions. There's no pending litigation. So mark that off the list. And the last thing is the adjournment. If somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
That one didn't take long. Thank you, Tammy. Second?
Second.
Andrea, thank you. Kimberly, roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Perfect. That concludes our meeting. Thank you for the ones that stayed the whole time. I'm impressed.